After an extended night of driving, first thing in the morning, I headed across the street to Bob's Big Boy, where I had breakfast for the first time. My meal was great, my coffee was even better. My waitress was a little too excited to see me. I made sure I knew she was very excited to serve me. Look how cool that is to drive up on at the National Air Force Museum. And they got some cool planes sitting outside. I just had a really good time at the U.S. Air Force Museum. I came around just before noon, and it's 5 and I'm leaving. And I had to rush to get through some of the stuff. But it was really dope, and if you're traveling through Ohio, specifically Dayton, and need a break from travel, I highly suggest bringing your kids there. And while I was here, there were a lot of tours. And some of these tours were with service people, men and women. We're actually right beside you, going through the exhibit and learning for classes that they're taking. What was successful and unsuccessful about different planes and the environments they were used in. And the Vietnam and Cold War era planes are pretty cool. But now I'm back on the road, and I was going to stop in St. Louis because it was so incredibly informative at the museum. I thought I was going to blow through in an hour or two after lunch just to stretch my legs, and I was here for 5 hours. So no arch, maybe I'll see it on the way back. But it was dope to see, the Warthog plane that my friend's dad flew for years in the Air Force. He just retired right before COVID. So now I'm headed straight to Columbia, 7-hour drive. Gonna try and power through it, and it says I'll get there at midnight. Same thing happened yesterday. I didn't get in till 3 or 4 in the morning. So hopefully nothing too crazy that will prevent me from checking in late. I should actually call the hotel. Indiana! Just crossed into Illinois. We got through Indiana in about an hour, if that. So we're in Illinois, crossed through Indiana, and it's about 9:20 at night. I should get to the hotel by 12:30 if I don't make any long stops. I might need to take a nap soon or guzzle more coffee. But I'm doing pretty good with gas. I'm at half a tank and it says I have 200 miles till empty, which is so far doing much better than... I feel like my gas gauge is getting better and better and more efficient, but I'm giving it good gas, and I cleaned out the fuel injection. While I have you here, let's talk about roadside attractions on the way to Missouri. This is probably my 3rd or 4th time going to Missouri, and each time I see giant crosses on the side of the road. Right here is the Miracle Cross I saw last time. Fun fact, the church put all their money into building this giant cross, and about 4 or 5 years later they went bankrupt. But on my trip this time, I saw America's 2nd largest cross, the Cross of the Crossroads. One of those pictures is my own, the other 2 are from the internet. And I believe the first time I went out I saw Christ of the Ozarks. Yeah, they love their crosses. It is 11:45. I'm making good time. I literally crossed over. The sign said Mississippi River, and then it said Missouri River. So I guess it's where they come together, but the long bridge went over, and I pulled over for gas. And surprisingly now, it says, can I switch sides? No, I cannot when I'm in video. But I'm now showing 407 miles till empty. So I guess my fuel efficiency is getting better, or I don't know. So using better gas and maybe putting in that fuel injection cleaner and gasoline boost help. I also just make sure that menu comes up. Now we're good. Got off the phone with my parents. They were checking in to see where I was and couldn't believe that I had driven at all. This says brake is on. All right, there we go. So back on the road. We've definitely passed over 1,000 miles. When the final countdown came on, I was so excited to check the mileage. Definitely at like 989. And then got so busy listening to the book on tape, I wasn't paying attention and didn't notice we've crossed over at 1,000 miles, which is what I was paying attention to. So currently we are at 1,052 miles. And we're past St. Louis and kind of headed to Columbia. It's me checking in to the hotel room. Trying to get my giant cart of stuff in the room. But when I said before, I just knew I was getting in at 12:30, and at one point I was in the car and I was like, wow, I'm making really great time. Looking at my phone. Forgot about the time zone changes. I was like, wow, this room's pretty nice. Lots of space. All right. So it is 12:30 here, but it was 1:30 my time. And that was when I went from Ohio. So I don't know if I got in on... Yeah, I guess I got in at the time I should have. All right. Signing off because I have to check in tomorrow, bright and early. And there's a time zone change, so that's another hour I'm losing. But we are in beautiful Columbia, Missouri. That's about it. And now I gotta go move the truck, which I left outside the lobby. That's all I have for you with regards to the driving portion of this video. If you'd like to see part of the museum tour, stick around and you can see the photos and videos I took there. I was not exaggerating when I said the building was huge. As you can see, there are several hangars, and the Cold War Gallery takes up the most real estate. As you can imagine, the museum started where most U.S. history books begin when it comes to aeronautics, the Wright brothers. The museum had a few full-size replicas. You can see the wax canvas stretched over the wings and where they sat to operate. Now imagine someone strapped in next to you holding a rifle. That's how they tried it for a while. That pretty much covers air warfare until you get to the Civil War, where it gets interesting. Prior to the museum tour, I had never heard of military ballooning. It was used in France to some success and here in the States during the Civil and Spanish-American Wars. Professor Thaddeus S.C. Lowe flew one of his famous balloons 100 feet over Washington, D.C. and telegraphed President Lincoln to describe how beautiful the city was from above. That alone was enough to convince President Lincoln that aerial reconnaissance would be vital to the war. From there, Thaddeus led hydrogen-filled balloons during the first 2 years of the war. At one time, the Union Army had 7 balloons in service. You should know there were 3 additional balloons manned by John LaMontagne at Fort Monroe, New York. If you read the scathing wiki post above, you can see why most Civil War ballooning info out there skips over him entirely. He basically begged, borrowed, robbed, and stole his way into ballooning, only to spend most of his time crashing them. When he lost the chief position to Thaddeus, he went to Fort Monroe and got his buddy the general to employ him as a balloonist for aerial reconnaissance in New York. The guy was a total jerk and died while ballooning in 1874. Let's face it,
Thaddeus's mustache alone could carry a Michael Bay biopic, so it's understandable no one spends time on John LaMontagne. Anyway, the program ended due to the lack of cooperation by the Army. Lowe resigned in May of 1863, and all ballooning ceased the following month, thus depriving the Union of a useful military tool. Okay, so the Confederates were soon to copy the Union. Legend has it that the sole Confederate balloon was fabricated of silk from dresses donated by Southern ladies. In reality, they had at least 3 that we know of in service, 1 made of cotton and 2 made of silk from new bolts of silk of various colors that came from a garment factory. The South's inability to produce hydrogen in the field, along with material shortages, forced the Confederates to abandon balloon operations altogether in 1863. For the United States, aerial warfare would not be considered a serious tactic in military operations until at least 50 years later. I found this to be really funny. I like this exhibit. This is a cadet training for World War II, and he has crashed his pilot while taxiing, and these guys are fixing it up. But the display says that almost 40% of cadets did not graduate from flying school. And this shows that the front-heavy plane, if you taxied while the wind was behind you, would tip over and bend the propellers. But these people's faces are hilarious. And now the Memphis Belle. I don't know about you, but I grew up in the tri-state area, and it felt like every single week there was a World War II movie on WPIX New York, Channel 11. I've probably seen the Memphis Belle and Biloxi Blues 50 times. I highly recommend you watch both movies, and the episode called The Mission from Spielberg's Amazing Stories in the 80s. It was awesome to see the Belle and the Gunner Balls in person. The Tuskegee exhibit had a ton of photos, uniforms, and memorabilia. It was great to see them get the recognition they deserved, though a lot of what they experienced was toned down. It was more information than I expected, given the way it makes the military look bad, and the entire historical endeavor has always been retold through the Disney lens of everyone being so happy to serve while being treated like crap. But hey, if that's your jam, you can always watch the World War II movie starring Cuba Gooding Jr. You know, the one where he makes a name for himself, defying the odds, breaking the color barrier. At a certain point during the war, pilots and crewmen were told they had to complete 25 missions before they could go home. I feel like this guy just got told. I can hear his voice, in true Danny Glover fashion, saying, "I'm too old for this shit." Here's the F-15 Eagle. It was later replaced by the F-16 Fighting Raptor. Pictured here is the B-2 Spirit, which we affectionately call the stealth bomber. It was designed and engineered in the 80s, and the first one rolled out in 89. It began dropping bombs on Kosovo by 1999. Today, there are still 20 in use by the U.S. military. Expect to see the new B-21 Raider by 2025. Next up are 2 really cool planes, the first one being the Boeing V-22 Osprey, which is a tilt-rotor military aircraft which can do vertical takeoffs, landings, and short takeoffs, and also has long-range capabilities and high-speed performance. And finally, after the Memphis Belle, this had to be my favorite, the P-82 Twin Mustang, which is basically just 2 P-51 Mustangs crammed together. The plane has 2 fuselages. You can't get much cooler than that. It was designed for World War II but didn't see combat until the Korean War. After that, aeronautics shifted away from the dual fuselage setup. Now it's making a comeback. In 2019, Stratolaunch's gigantic twin-bodied plane took its first flight. At a whopping 385 feet with 6 engines, it makes it the widest wingspan thus far in any plane in history. The U.S. is also launching its F-15 Eagle twin fuselage plane later this year. That's it for planes, but this Mustang and Challenger are pretty cool. They're used for training purposes. The cars are supposed to kind of look like cockpits, and I thought it was dope. I thought that the Cushman airborne scooter was pretty cool as well. It was dropped from planes with paratroopers, I believe. Anyway, I have a buddy who is totally into motorcycles and a former Marine, and I dropped these photos in a group chat saying, check out this motorbike. He promptly replied, correcting me on everything, but I don't think he got that I was just kind of poking the bear there. And finally, the rat. Anyway, that is it for the Air Force Museum. On the way out, I did see 2 or 3 displays of the Air Force patting themselves on the back. From there, I went to the gift shop and got my nephew some pretty cool scores. I even brought home a coffee mug for myself that has a really cool heat transfer thing. You fill it up with hot stuff, and you can see all the dates that people landed on the moon and did stuff there. What else did I get? I got my mom a Rosie the Riveter coffee mug, and I think that's pretty much it. I got back on the road, and later saw some crazy stuff on the highway.